Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a special treat for you as I'll be working on this incredibly fast, incredibly expensive 2019 Porsche GT3 RS, and yes, believe it or not, this car is street legal. Now, while this looks like a car you're far more likely to see on a racetrack than on city streets, it is legal to drive this race-inspired Porsche anywhere you'd like. Of course, you're going to have to shell out a massive amount of money to do so, but like the owner of this one, you'll have the equivalent of a rocket ship under your butt if you do. Of course, no one lets a car like this get super dirty, but they all want it to look perfect, and that's exactly what I'm going to do today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the stunning sights of this Porsche GT3. Okay guys, well, like I mentioned in last week's video, I was able to get my pressure washer hose replaced after it had sprung a leak pretty quick because Green Can Pump sent one out to me so fast. But for those of you who don't know, that's where I got my electric pressure washer from. If you want to know more about it or any of the other equipment I use in the studio, like my extractor or vacuum, then check out the studio tour video I did right here on the main channel, or there's also the studio build series over on the Detail Geek 2 that documents the entire construction process of the shop and studio. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of you out there who are wondering how much a car like this costs, and if you're thinking it must be a boatload, well, you'd be right. The MSRP of a new Porsche GT3 RS is a staggering $241,000 US, but you can easily add options and customization that would bring the total well over $300,000. Now, of course, the owner of this one didn't pay quite that much since it's a 2019, and he only bought it a year ago, but he did pay $310,000 Canadian, or about $225,000 US, which means that this car hasn't depreciated a whole lot. In fact, some GT3s even go up in value because they're such a rare and collectible car. Okay, well, given that this GT3 only has a few inches of ground clearance, I had to check and make sure my undercarriage washer would actually fit under the car, and thankfully it did, but just barely. Moving to these dirty wheels and tires with my wheel and tire cleaner in hand, and having already used the pressure washer on them nice and close will get the majority of the dirt and any blooming off. Though if you aren't sure what blooming is, well, if you've ever seen brown on your tires, it's likely the anti-ozonate that's leaching out, which is something that will happen naturally over time. However, if it's not cleaned regularly, the tires will eventually be stained brown, so it's always a good idea to clean your tires regularly with a good tire cleaner and a stiff brush like the one you just saw me use, which is available on my website at detailgeekautocare.com. Alright, well now that I've got the entire car covered in some nice thick foam, I'll use my boar's hair detail brush around all the tight spaces and crevices around the car to gently lift out any trapped dirt, and believe me, there were a ton of spots I needed to do this. Now as I continue washing the car here, I figured I'd give you guys some of the crazy specs this car has. Now it's powered by a naturally aspirated 4-liter flat 6 that makes 520 horsepower and 346 pound-feet of torque, which is enough to get this car to 60 miles an hour in only 3 seconds. So yeah, it's got some serious giddy up, but the one thing I found interesting was that there were only 4,750 of these 2019 models made worldwide, with 1,462 making their way to the US and only 294 to Canada. So that makes it a pretty rare vehicle. Okay, well, to my earlier point about there being a ton of crevices around this car, that also means it's prone to being very drippy following being washed, so I'm taking a quick couple minutes to blow out all the water so I don't have drip showing up later on, or worse, after I finish with the car. Okay, as I work on drawing the door jambs here, before I start on the interior, I have a question for you guys. Knowing how much a car like this costs, and that maintenance on it isn't cheap, I found a receipt for an oil change in here that was $600. I'm curious if you guys would own this car if you had the money. And if not, what car would you buy? Go ahead and let me know down in the comments. Now as I work my way around the car with the vacuum, you can clearly tell that it's not all that dirty in here, which really isn't all that surprising as vehicles like this don't get driven all that much and almost always during the warm summer months. This car only has 6,000 kilometers on it, so it hasn't been driven very much in 5 years, but despite that, it doesn't change my process on this car at all. I still have to do pretty well every single step that I usually do in order to be sure that the car is going to look flawless when I'm done today. Moving to the seats, and you'll notice that these buckets are extremely rigid, lightweight because they're wrapped in carbon fiber, and don't come with any adjustment other than forwards and backwards and up and down. This is standard equipment on the RS version of this car because it's intended to be a track car. The vehicle is basically stripped of any unnecessary equipment and features in order to lower the weight, but in terms of these seats, it sure did make accessing behind them more challenging. Alright, well, as I finish off the cargo area here where the back seats would normally be, you might notice that this is a pure two-seater and doesn't have any back seats. Again, to lower the weight of the car. Really, it's not like you could fit anyone back here anyways, especially because you can't tilt the front seats forward, so no one can physically get back here, but it does end up adding a ton of slightly hard to access cargo space. Now the last section of the car to vacuum is up in the front storage compartment, which oddly enough was full of bed sheets and hundreds of the owner's business cards. Now the guy works as a criminal defense lawyer here in town, and business cards would still be a very effective way to get his name out, but I did have to chuckle seeing a whole box of them sitting under a pile of sheets. Okay, well, after getting the 2 floor mats vacuumed off, I've opted not to pressure wash them today because they just weren't anywhere near dirty enough to warrant it. So I'll get some of my carpet cleaner sprayed on, hit them with the soft white drill brush, and then extract like usual. Moving back inside the car now, and under this rear lid is where the engine is on the car, though it's very covered up, so no way to do anything more in depth than a quick APC wipe down, and then I'll also use the steamer quick to blast any dirt out of the crevices. And also, while we're back here, I have to say that I thought that red mechanism on the right hand side there that keeps this lid open was pretty cool. When you're ready to close it, you just move the red mechanism a little bit to sort of unlock it, so it's a cool piece of engineering. Now for the rest of the interior, which really isn't all that dirty, I'm opting to just do a quick wipe down with a damp microfiber towel, and then I'll follow up with a dry one. The vehicle just isn't dirty enough inside to warrant using all-purpose cleaner or the steamer either. Okay, last step inside the GT3 now, and that's to get some leather conditioner applied to these seats. Though despite it looking shiny right now, that's simply because it's wet and there's light shining on it. I can assure you it will dry to a nice matte finish and leave the leather looking incredible. Next up is to get some 303 applied to the black plastic trim all around the car, of which there was quite a bit, and then I'll also get some applied inside the front storage compartment as well. And to answer this week's members question from Joel, which is, if you had the choice between Timbits or Sour Patch Kids, which would you pick? Well, that's an easy one. I'd pick Sour Patch Kids, but as for Mike, he'd take both. Okay, well, despite the entire car being covered in paint protection film, I am still going ahead and applying some ceramic spray coating. This obviously isn't a necessary step today since the car has PPF on it,
but it can add a little bit of gloss, so I figured why not? This is a beautiful car and it deserves to look as good as possible. Alright guys, last step before I fire this car up and move it outside for the reveal shots, and that's to get the tires dressed with some of my tire dressing, which will leave them with a nice, deep, matte black look when it dries.
All right guys, well 8 hours later and this GT3 is looking absolutely sick. This is such a beautiful car. Love this green paint job. Yeah, it was just a total pleasure to get to work on this today. Now, if you guys enjoyed watching this video, make sure you smash the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.